What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. In today's video we've got a different sized box for you guys, and that's because this is actually not a complete board. What we have here is the MaxFind M5 hub motor kit, and this is actually an electric skateboard pre-built kit that comes without a deck. So essentially you mount this kit to any deck of your choice. So in today's video we are going to be unboxing this product and building it up to the complete board that it can be, and in the next video we will actually review it. Starting with the box, I think that MaxFind absolutely nailed this one. I love that it has a handle, and I also love all the graphics on it. I think it just looks like a very cool, polished, and finished product when it's in such a nice box. So now let's get into actually opening this thing. It's one of those nice boxes you don't need to cut open, but it has those flaps on the side that just fold out. There's a layer of foam, and then everything is in a little foam cutout underneath that. So the first thing on top is the actual enclosure, and this thing feels dense, it feels heavy, and it feels well made. It's not made from plastic, it's actually made of some sort of metal, and it houses the battery and ESC. Next up we have the front trucks. The wheels are already installed, which is super nice, you don't need to put those on yourself. And then there's the rear truck. This is a hub motor board, so the hub motors are already mounted to the rear truck. Right out of the box they feel really good. It doesn't feel like they're super cheap hub motors. They definitely aren't a premium product, but they don't feel cheap either, which is good to see. Underneath the next piece of foam are all of the accessories. There's a general MaxFind pamphlet that shows all of their boards. There's also a MaxFind instruction manual for this product. It says Max 4 Pro on it. I'm not sure, we have the Max Pro 5. That's just a mistake, I guess. There's the remote, which is a general hobby wing remote. I've seen this with a couple of the other boards we reviewed in the past. But then there's this pink bubble wrapped pouch, which I think contains skate hardware for mounting both the enclosure to the deck and the trucks to the deck. There's also the charger, which is a standard looking charger included with pretty much every single electric skateboard. There's also the power supply for that charger. In the middle there's also this red charger, which is a USB-C to charge the remote. They also include two tools. The first one is an Allen key. I'm not really sure what this is going to go to because it's a hub motor. Maybe it can somehow take that apart, I'm not sure. And then they have a T-tool, which is always a nice thing to have if you're using a skateboard or an e-skate. That concludes the unboxing. This is everything that's included inside the MaxFind M5 kit. It's pretty standard for most budget boards to have all of these components. The one thing obviously missing is the deck, which you will need to purchase separately, but that's also nice because you can choose the deck that you want to use on your electric skateboard. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is the enclosure, which houses both the battery and the ESC. It's a single enclosure for both of these. On the bottom side is a yellow plastic piece, which I think covers the electronics to render the board waterproof. The rest of the enclosure is made of some sort of metal, like I mentioned earlier. It doesn't say which metal it is on their website. It's definitely a lot sturdier than plastic, which is a nice touch. On the side is a power switch as well as the charge port, which feel pretty good. According to the website, the board and enclosure are IP65 waterproof. Overall, the enclosure isn't the sleekest in my opinion. I think it looks good, but it's pretty thick in general compared to a single stack cell board. The power switch I really like. It's one of those that lights up and glows a certain color when you turn it on. And the charge port is also really cool. I love the waterproof cap that they added, and it's actually not a standard barrel jack port that you see on most budget boards. It's actually a 3-prong port. Something that you'd see on the One Wheel has something similar to this. It's definitely not as common on most budget boards. The rear of the enclosure features 2 tubes that extrude from the back, and these are where the motor wires go into the enclosure. I really like the connectors they've opted to use, as they're easy to plug in and you really can't mess them up. I really do like the size of the enclosure. It has a good footprint, which is going to allow users to mount this to shorter boards and longer boards, but this comes at the expense of being a little bit thicker, which is going to give you less clearance. On the front of this enclosure is a small star-shaped knob, and this knob is used to actually remove the battery casing. This kit actually does feature a swappable battery system, which is super cool. It's really simple to use. After unscrewing that knob, you just slide off the rear portion and then you have access to the battery. In mere minutes you can swap from one pack to a fresh pack and keep riding. Speaking of the battery that they've opted to use and the one they sent us is a 10S2P battery made from Samsung 18650 cells. It's only 158 watt hours, which is quite small, but they do have a couple other bigger battery options if you decide to upgrade in the future, or you just want to buy a bigger one off the start. There's also plenty of room inside of that enclosure for those bigger batteries. I think that the swappable battery system that they've designed on this kit is really cool. I've never really had a board with good swappable batteries, so this is definitely new and I actually really do like it. Overall, the Enclosure is pretty neat. I think it's well designed, and when you're buying the MaxFind kit, this is one of the things that really separates it from a lot of the other boards out there. Like I said, the battery is not that great. It's a 10S2P with 158 watt hours, which is really small for this price, so you're really paying for this Enclosure design. So I got curious after looking at that yellow piece on top, so I decided to actually undo it and see what was underneath and inside, and fortunately I did, because that's actually how you mount this whole thing to the deck. So under that yellow piece there's actually a piece of foam, which is going to act as the waterproof sealant, and then you actually have direct access to the ESC. The ESC that comes with the M5 kit is the Hobbywing FOC ESC. From what I've heard, it's a fairly solid ESC. A lot of the other boards that we reviewed in the past, such as the Beast board and the AE board, also use this ESC, so it's proven itself to be a reliable and good ESC in a lot of these mid-budget to budget range boards. Next up, we have the front trucks and front wheels assembly. Starting with the trucks, they call these the Max 2 trucks. According to their website, these use proprietary forging and CNC milling manufacturing processes, which allegedly improve their stability at high speeds. These are 45-degree precision trucks, and they are using 78A bushings. The wheels on the front truck are 96mm in diameter, and their durometer is 78A. I actually do quite like the graphics on these and the color scheme that they've opted to use. The contact patch on these wheels is roughly 50mm. I measured that myself, it's not official on their website. And the wheels seem to have a stone ground finish just based on the way that they look and feel, which I'm not sure why they've done. I really do like the aesthetic of the front truck. I think that the front wheels really do pop and provide a cool look. The only thing that I'm not a really big fan of is the stone ground finish on the wheels, but that's just a personal opinion. Next up, we have the rear truck and the hub motors, and the first thing that I notice when I look at these is that they actually have the same pattern on the side of the wheel as the front wheel does, which I really like because they've clearly paid attention to detail on the aesthetics for this kit. The durometer and softness of the hub motor sleeve isn't that great, however they never are when it comes to hub motors. I can say though that the sleeves on these are a little bit thicker than most other hub motors, probably because the wheels are 96mm, which is quite large for a hub. These hub motors aren't like ones that I've seen on other budget boards. They are custom made by MaxFind. They're very sleek, which I do like, and there's no bulging metal parts sticking inside of the truck. As for the specs, like I said, this is a dual drive, and according to the website, these are both 750 watts, which is going to give you a combined total output of 1500 watts, which is pretty good on a hub motor board. Compared to most other budget boards, it's clear that these aren't the off-the-shelf hubs that every other company uses and that they're unique. As for the connectors, they came with these plastic caps that cover them. These are going to plug into the ESC, which has those cylindrical tubes sticking out of the enclosure. It's a 9-pin connector with 8 on the outside and 1 in the middle. It's a really easy to use connector, which is great for anyone looking for something plug and play. Moving on to the charger, it's just a standard charging brick that you get with every electric skateboard. It looks exactly the same. I'm pretty sure these come from the exact same factory. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a 42-volt charger with 2 amps current, which is just average. The only thing different is that it is a 3-pin connector because there is a 3-pin charge port, which is something that I'm not used to seeing. I'm used to the barrel connector. The remote is the standard Hobbywing remote. It does have an LCD display. I've used this remote when I reviewed the AE board and the Beast board, and I quite like it. It fits very comfortably in the hand. It doesn't feel like it's made of cheap plastic, and it has a nice finish to it. It's a matte black with a rubberized coating on it, so it does feel nice, and it's definitely not a budget feeling. The charge port on it is also a USB-C, which is great because everything seems to be shifting that way. It's got a ton of cool features that show you your battery percentage, your board percentage, an odometer, a lifetime odometer, and then it's also got 4 riding modes with different top speeds so that you can get used to your board. The charger for the remote is just a standard USB charger with a USB-C on the other end, and then like I said, they also include 2 tools, which are a T-tool and that Allen key. Moving into the pink bubble wrapped bag, there were a couple things in there. The first thing were riser pads and then a bunch of hardware. So the riser pads are definitely interesting looking, not something I've seen before. There were also some silver bolts, and these are to bolt the enclosure to the deck. And then there were some black bolts and nuts, and these are the standard deck hardware that you get with everything. So there are really just 2 types of hardware, one for the enclosure and one for trucks to deck. Speaking of the deck, that's the only thing that's missing when you get this kit, so you get to choose the deck you want. Preferably it's going to be something stiff because it's a fairly large enclosure that's going to be rigid on the bottom. So we chose this deck right here. It's a 38-inch long deck with kicktails on each end. Some of you guys may recognize this from a DIY build video that we released over 2 years ago, but this is the one we're using. We got it from Skate Shred. It cost right around 40 bucks plus the $10 in shipping. You can really count anywhere from $50 to $100+ for a deck. The first thing that we did was to mock up where we wanted all the parts to go. It's important that the phase wires for the motor are going to extend all the way, so you want the enclosure in the right location. As for plugging the phase wires into the enclosure, there are actually arrows on both the enclosure cylindrical pieces and on the wires, and you'll want to line those up when plugging it in. That way it actually works properly. You can see them more clearly in this shot, but you just want the arrows pointing at each other. Once we figured out where we wanted everything to go, we marked with a pencil on the deck where we thought the base of the enclosure should go, and then stripped everything off of the deck, leaving only that yellow piece of plastic for reference. We then used the yellow piece of plastic as a template and marked down the 6 holes that we wanted to drill through on the deck to mount the enclosure. We then actually used a cordless drill to drill 6 holes in the deck. With the holes drilled, we found the hardware that we needed to use, which were those 6 silver bolts included inside that pink bubble wrapped packaging. We mounted these inside of the deck from the top down. With the deck upside down, we then aligned the yellow piece of plastic and the foam with the bolts. We then placed the enclosure on top and attempted to align it with the bolts. Using a driver and a Phillips head bit, we were then able to screw the 6 bolts into the threads already inside of the enclosure. The bolts are actually a little bit too short in my opinion, so it would be nice if they were longer, and we actually had to take out that yellow piece of plastic to allow them to even be long enough to engage the threads. In the end, it still ended up looking pretty clean, as that piece of foam does do enough in my opinion to provide a watertight seal. Maybe it is actually in fact that that yellow piece isn't intended to go inside. I'm not sure, there weren't instructions, so I was just going off of what I thought would work best. With the enclosure mounted, we then bolted the trucks to the deck. We actually opted to use the riser pad that they included, as it did feel pretty soft and I just wanted to try it out to see if it was any good. We first mounted the rear trucks as they are heavier, using the exact same technique that you use on any sort of actual skateboard. With everything mounted to the deck, the last step was to reconnect the motor phase wires, making sure that the arrows are pointed at one another, just like we showed earlier. To test that everything's working out, we turned on the board, turned on the remote, and throttled to see if everything was good to go. And just like that, the MaxFind M5 is mounted to the deck of your choice. Of course, there weren't really specific instructions on how to do this, so we just went off of what we thought would work best. I don't know if that's actually how you're supposed to mount the enclosure, but so far it's worked well for me. I should say that MaxFind's website and product description advertises that you can mount this thing up in 5 minutes. That's not at all true. It probably took us closer to an hour to actually get this thing up and running, just because we wanted to make sure that everything was done right the first time and that everything would be solid and ready to go when we actually took it out. Overall, I'm super pleased with the kit. It seems to be very well thought out and designed, and I think that anyone with the proper tools and a little bit of time could easily assemble this to the deck of their choice. Deck customization is definitely one of the biggest selling points of the M5 kit, but that's a story for the next video where we will actually be reviewing this kit. This video is just the unboxing and setup video of the MaxFind series. We will have a video up in the near future where we actually review this board, talk through the specs, and whether or not it's worth buying. For now, we will leave a link in the video description for the MaxFind M5 kit. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and comment down below what you guys think of the MaxFind kit. Also, if you guys aren't already subscribed, please consider subscribing for lots of other electric skateboard reviews and DIY electric skateboard content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.